So in this video we're going to look at the problems of implementing fiscal and indeed monetary policy in a real world context, because governments have real problems to do with time lags, the quality of data and the unpredictable nature of how the economy may respond to policy initiatives and decisions. So if we just go through some of the key issues. First of all, there are a whole series of time lags that occur in macroeconomics. First of all, we have data lags. So macroeconomic data series are often only available after a time delay. So as a government, you're always looking back by several months before the data is actually available. And also, the other key problem is they're subject to big revisions due to errors and omissions. So for example, GDP data won't come out for several months and is often corrected for months to come afterwards by significant amounts. Same with balance of payments data. There's errors and omissions in balance of payments data are significant and are often corrected as the months go by. So in other words, policymakers are making decisions based upon retrospective and not contemporaneous data at the current moment. So it's a bit like flying a plane, but you only know the height and speed, say 5 minutes ago, and not where you are at this moment in time. So this obviously makes policy making tricky. And the revisions are often very significant. It can mean balance of payments data for the current account that's actually not in the red but in the black, for example. Also, if you're looking at a statistical series like GDP, if it goes negative, is it a one-off blip or is it the start of a trend, is it the start of a recession? Well, you don't really know that, and that's another problem. The third problem is you have a legislative time lag. So if you're going to introduce a change in fiscal policy, it's generally in a budget that has to be introduced with legislation through a parliament, and this takes time, often months. Changing interest rates, of course, can happen much more immediately. The fourth problem is implementation lag. So if you change fiscal policy and the government increases spending, it takes time for that spending to actually be enacted by a department. Say you want to spend more on youth training. Well, it'll take months before the agencies actually respond and spend the cash that's available, for example. So there's an implementation lag. And fifthly, there's certainly an effectiveness lag. It takes time for fiscal policy to work, about 6 months. Maybe a tax cut can work more quickly than an increase or decrease in government expenditure. And also monetary policy takes 1.5 years to have its full effect. So it takes time to have an effect. So some people argue that running an economy is a bit like steering an oil tanker. You can make an adjustment and it takes miles before that adjustment comes into effect. Like you put the brakes on, it'll take several miles to stop because of the momentum. The other issue, of course, is how the economy responds to policy changes, and that is unpredictable. So if you have an increase in stimulus measure, will consumers respond by actually spending more, by increasing the amount of money to consume, or will there be an adverse response? So this all makes policy making within a global context rather tricky. And I hope that's useful. Thank you very much.